in the master of wine education, you have to have a really deep understanding of the viticulture and the winemaking and also like shipping and bottling and quality control. And so you really go very deep into the production as well. So I feel even though I'm not trained as a winemaker, I really understand the process, what happens in the vineyard and in the wine.
It's so lovely to meet you here on Zoom.
Yeah, you too.
So where are you based?
I'm based in Oslo.
In Oslo, okay. And you are a wine educator, but you also qualified as a sommelier.
Yeah. I used to work as a sommelier first. So I did a chef's education first, and then I did a sommelier education and decided I wanted to work with wine. And then I continued working in the other side of the restaurant. So I was working as a sommelier for 5-6 years before I started with education.
But you said first you trained as a chef.
Yep.
And so the interest in food and wine, so what made you do the switch then to study for sommelier?
I think it was the fact that it works so well together, and I wanted to understand more how to better prepare the food that works with wine. And then I thought wine was a bit more interesting. So it was really, a topic that I found interesting, and it was easy to see that you improved in a way, because with the cooking, of course, you can see that you're improving and techniques getting better and so on. But with wine, it was so like easy to measure knowledge and success in a different way, and I thought that was really inspiring. So I started with the sommelier education and then WSET diploma, and eventually master of wine.
So, but now back to the food. So the food, I mean, it's got you have to understand the taste of food in a way, and you say now that this combination with wine, can you see a lot of similarities in these jobs?
I'm not sure, but what you see with the tastes and tasting the two elements is that it's all about balance. And I think that's something that we see, which is very much in common, is that you need to have the balanced flavors in the dish for nothing to stand up too much. And the same with the wine. So if you get that feel of harmony and balance, it's much easier to see if anything is missing or what the quality level really is. So I think that's maybe the main similarity between them, is that it's really all about balance.
But I spoke to a sommelier a while ago, and we spoke about people ordering in a restaurant, for example. Do you think we just not knowledgeable enough? Because usually when you get into a restaurant, people ask you first what you want to drink, whereas you have to really think about what you're going to eat before you're going to order what you're going to drink.
Yeah, of course, sometimes for me, I'm deciding on the wine first, and then I'm just going for something that would fit, because I'm eating pretty much everything. But no, I think, as you say, it's, of course, you can start by ordering an aperitif, and then deciding on the wine for the food should, of course, be done after you know what the food will be. So, yeah.
But as a sommelier, so you said you worked for 6 years.
Yep.
As a sommelier. So what did this job of yours entailed?
I was also a restaurant manager, so it was at a quite small hotel, and so I was running the fine dining restaurant and also a bit more banquets and larger parties. So that was a bit mixed fine dining with food and wine in combination and recommendations, and also just organizing, running larger events.
So you then chose the wine for the restaurant according to the menu.
Okay. Yes.
And you work together then with the chef.
Yep.
Okay. So now, so you wanted to then explore wine more. What was this interest in the wine then? To go and study, you know, because you're now a wine educator.
Yeah, I think the main thing for me was that I had already started the WSET diploma, and I felt that I wasn't able to use all the information I learned. So all the knowledge, I wasn't able to use it in the restaurant. Of course, it would be boring for the guest in the restaurant to hear everything about rootstocks and soils and climates. So I figured it wouldn't really work that well to be like studying at that level and working with a bit more like basic tastes and combinations. So I decided I wanted to try something different and figure out quite quickly that education was a really good way to use the knowledge. And also it's very inspiring to be the one that gets people to understand. It's like you can memorize a lot of things in the wine world, but if you're the one that really gives them the bigger picture, helps them understand, it's really rewarding. So I've been working with it since 2014.
So do you think it helped you because you were a sommelier first to do this now?
Yeah, I think it's very good to have the perspective from the restaurant side as well, because a lot of educators are maybe they've been working only in import or sales, and then of course if you have a sommelier student or someone who's working in a restaurant, it's difficult to understand that side of things. So I think it's very good to have a varied background and be able to give the students as much relevant information as possible.
And do you think as a sommelier, do you think everybody can be that? Do you have to have what would be the quality that you say that somebody has to have to be a good sommelier?
Because it's a lot of service and restaurant guest interaction. I think you really need to be a service-minded person. It's not enough to have the knowledge about the wine and to understand like the taste. You need to really want to see the side of the guest as well. And if they say that they hate Riesling and half your menu is Riesling wines, then of course you have to change it. It's even if you think the Rieslings are great, then you need to see the guest as well. So I think that's maybe a bit of a challenge nowadays, is that the sommeliers, they have a bit too much focus on like what's new, what's trendy, what's fun, what do they like, and then a bit more force it on the guests because they're not really open to seeing the guest.
Yeah, because it's also a very competitive industry. I see there's a lot of competitions and everybody aspires to be the best sommelier.
And in the sommelier competitions as well, you're judged by originality. So I think that's maybe a bit dangerous because of course you should be original. You should show them something new and exciting, but the whole wine pairing shouldn't consist of like new styles that maybe the guests haven't ever tried. I think just the other day I saw a wine pairing with like 3 fortified wines during the meal, where you have a dry sherry, a dry Madeira or drier style with them some of the savory courses. And I think it's cool if that's like the image, the style of the place. But if it's just a normal wine pairing menu and you go for a lot of these different styles of wines, I think it's very challenging for the guests. Yeah, so I think maybe they will lose confidence in the wine pairing if too many people do this.
And it's also not everybody does it on that level. You know, not all the guests or people dining do it on that level. You know, you just want a lovely meal, a lovely wine to go with it. So it's part of that atmosphere as well.
Yeah, and I think that's very important to understand, is that some wines is difficult to appreciate if you're not very focused, if you're not very concentrated as well. Like a Premier Cru Chablis could just fall under the radar because it's too elegant, too like nuanced, and if the guest isn't really paying attention, they will just feel that it's neutral and not giving them anything. And therefore, I think it's like you have to also see the guest. Is this a group of people that just want to talk, have fun, have something good to eat, and maybe something a bit more upfront flavor-wise, or is it people that can really appreciate the nuance, the elegant styles? And yeah, I think that's a big part of the sommelier job, that you should really see the guest.
But now, as a wine educator, what exactly is, so do you study the wines, but you also study the whole process, like the growing of the grapes and the vineyards and so on, and then to the winemaking part? So do you cover all those aspects?
Yeah, it depends a bit on what education, because we do 5 different levels, so 4 different WSET levels, and sommelier education as well. And I teach most of the topics, like a bit here and a bit there. We have a few other educators as well. But in the Master of Wine Education, you have to have a really deep understanding of the viticulture and the winemaking, and also like shipping and bottling and quality control. And so you really go very deep into the production as well. So I feel, even though I'm not trained as a winemaker, I really understand the process, what happens in the vineyard and in the wine.
Yeah, so you're not actually there making the wine, but you understand.
I've been visiting enough, talking to enough winemakers to sort of understand enough, and then of course it would be cool to go work in a winery, but it's so far it hasn't been time for it.
I've spoken to a agricultural economist, and we were talking about the wine industry, specifically in South Africa, and he was saying that the market is sort of, the wine making process is sort of led sometimes by the market, that what people buy. Do you find that also that it's that there's a wine that's made for, say, everybody's taste, and then there are wines that are really exclusive and really for people who are interested in tasting and drinking wine because of the vineyard that it comes from, or the process, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not able to make a wine where you can make a profit selling it for like £4 if you're focusing on like the terroir and those things, because to really show the sense of place, you need to have a lower yield. You need to be a bit more on site and work more manually. And of course, the price point that people are prepared to pay for these wines is too low. So for those wines, you really need to just know that these are the framework I need to work within, and then you're making a wine to suit that price and that style. And generally, it's all about making it as upfront, available, and lovely as possible. But it's those wines where you use stainless steel, you use low temperature fermentation and so on to really enhance the aromatic profile on the nose. But then if you are focused when you're tasting it, you can see that it's lacking on the palate. But it's a very good way to make a wine really easily available and approachable. And then for most people, they stop paying attention when they have the wine in their mouth. Then they start talking to the person next to them again. It's really, for a lot of people, it's enough that it smells lovely and is like available.
But do you think if people are more educated in wine, or if people have more an understanding of the process of wine and the wine, the whole wine making and the time that it takes to get that wine in the bottle, if people have more understanding of that, they will also be willing to pay more and be more interested in what they are drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see a lot of interest in the 2 lowest level of WSET by people who's absolutely not in the industry. Also, actually, on the higher levels, but it's level 1 and 2 is almost exclusively people working in different industries, not in wine, and really just interested in wine, want to learn a bit more. And a lot of these people get like an aha experience where they taste the wine and they see that basically has no finish. The finish is really short because it's a wine made to be really upfront, but it doesn't have the concentration needed. So by learning how to taste quality, they understand what they need to look for, and then they understand that, okay, this costs more money because you're making fewer bottles. Of course, then it needs to be more expensive. So I think they will appreciate more the price it actually costs you to make a good wine, and how to see that the wine is better than another wine. And I think as long as people don't understand what quality is when they're tasting the wine, then of course getting them to pay for this quality is really difficult.
Yeah. But now I read an article where it says that wine is not just a science, but it's also an art. And do you also believe that?
Yeah, in a way, it's funny that you ask, because in my master wine exam, I had the question where I had to write an essay about, has science taking away the romance in wine? So romance, art, it's a bit like, I would say the same line. But I think absolutely, it's something where you really need to have a passion, and I think art is about like having passion for what you do, and really letting the product in a way make itself, but control the process along the way, and just ensuring that the result is the best possible, without always like deciding before you start where you will end up. And I think with art, it's pretty much a lot of the same thing as well. So I think absolutely it's it's a part of it. For me, I'm maybe a bit more technical. I'm not very much into all of the natural wine type of trend. So I'm a bit more the person that likes to know what's happening, why is it happening, what happens if you change the temperature or the different vessel. But I think absolutely you need to have a passion, and you need to let the place and the variety speak for itself as well.
Now, what is your stance on the old vines, the wines from the old vines, and preserving the old vines?
Yeah, I think it's quite often you can see much better quality, much more balanced sort of ripeness in the grapes, especially with some varieties. You can see that it's making a much better wine. So I think it's really important to keep the old vines as long as they're healthy and producing really good quality. I think like in South Africa, where they've had so much virus problems, if your vineyard is not completely healthy, it's better to replace it with a new one, which is healthy and producing then more balanced grapes. But I think absolutely, as long as people are willing to pay for the extra quality and lower amount of wine produced, then they should keep it. But of course, I understand they can't keep it for volume wines, because the wines start producing less volume, and then So I think for top quality or like very good quality wines, it's absolutely best to keep the old wines if they're healthy, and the clone is working, and the climate hasn't changed too much, so that everything is still working well.
But now, as a wine educator, what is your day-to-day job? Are you just teaching?
It's a lot of preparations as well, making sure that all the wines are ordered and come in and are sorted and put in the right temperature fridge and so on. And when we have different educators, of course, it's deciding on the topics with them, what dates and times, and making sure all the material is in place. And then it's a lot of teaching.
And who do you teach?
I teach at all levels, so WSET level 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as the sommelier education. And we also have a course now, quite new from, it's called Capstone, California. It's an educational program developed by California Wine Institute.
Okay.
So we're the only one in Norway doing this course at the moment, but they have few centers around Europe and other places of the world as well.
And what is it about the teaching that you enjoy?
As I mentioned earlier, it's really being able to make them understand, to like watch a room full of people with question marks in their eyes, and they're like, you see that they're struggling to understand, and then you give them another example, you explain it slightly differently, and then you see that, okay, now it's starting to be clear for everyone, and that's really the most enjoyable part.
And now, what are your wishes for the future in your career?
Yeah, I've been asked that question quite a lot of times since I passed the MW exam, and I think in Norway it's nothing else that could really give me the same enthusiasm and also inspiration in a line of work. So I think educating is really the best thing for me, at least at the moment. And I don't really have a dream to own a winery or anything. It's it would be cool, as I said, to work a vintage or something if it can happen in the future. But it's it's not really a dream to go making my own wine on a daily basis. That's I think education is.
Yeah. Do you visit wineries a lot?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? All over the world?
Yeah. I have a quite small boy now. He's 1.5 years old. So lately it hasn't been a lot of travels, and of course also with COVID. But when I was studying, I was traveling a lot. So I've been to most corners of the world where they produce good wines. So I think, and quite regularly going to like Germany, Austria, France, Italy, the more closer countries, and also been to South Africa, Australia, Chile, US. So like traveling a bit more. Yeah, so I feel very lucky.
Yeah, but how interesting. I mean, this must be amazing to see all these different ways of making wine, and the different climates also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And different scales of production as well. It's cool to see the really large ones. I've been to Gallo, I've been to Lindemans,
really,
and it's it's really, you learn so much from seeing this industry plants and then going to like a producer making 2 barrels. It's so much contrast, but it's really cool to be able to do both.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by the independent winemakers. You know, the small, the like you say, the smaller ones, and how they design their labels, and all the thinking that goes into that, all the creativity, you know, and everybody that, you know, wants to have their specific wine speak, and I love that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree on like a personal level. I think that's, of course, the most interesting and typically the best quality wines being produced as well. But from like a knowledge point of view, I think understanding how it happens in a very large scale is also very important and interesting.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Heidi, this was so interesting talking to you, and thank you so much for your time, and wonderful that you can talk to me from Oslo.
Yeah, very nice. Okay.
But have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.